Wake up, wake up. It's Valentine's Day. Guys, if you haven't bought what you need to buy, if you haven't done what you need to do, well, listen to us and do it. Do it.
Yeah, February 14th, indeed. Happy Valentine's Day, everyone. And if you haven't got that special someone in your life, that special something, well, you kind of blew it. I mean, maybe you can sneak it past her tonight, but do what you got to do to make it look good today. Bad day to be buying flowers, Larry. The flower market is through the roof right now. Tomorrow, flowers will be half off to what you pay for them today. Don't be a flower Valentine's Day, guys. Just surprise her with flowers throughout the year at a reasonable price. It means so much more than double the cost on Valentine's Day. Little tip from Uncle Damon to you.
I did see today, I've seen all week, kind of a cool looking thing that I've never really seen before. The box of flowers where the stems are all trimmed off and you just get a heart-shaped box full of roses. Now that's a good look. I will say that's a good look. I am I've been married. I got married in August of 99. So we're, 25 years in. And unlike you, I was more worried about my leaky roof than my Valentine's Day card purchase. So I've been spending more time in the last 24 hours getting the roofer over here than I have necessarily buying my Valentine's Day deal. So I didn't, it's going to be, there's 24 hours in a day, let's just say this, we'll get it taken care of, but we don't have it taken care of yet.
Larry,
I am in that delinquent stage right now.
The gift of shingles is a lovely gift. I mean, it really is. I think it works. Hopefully it matches and it's coordinated. And may you be celebrating your love through shingles and a dry home.
There you go.
Keeping the family dry, I think, is an act of love. So you go ahead and you do that. Again, happy Valentine's Day to everybody. Thank you so much for liking and subscribing. It's great to have you here. And look, the draft season is officially around the corner. Larry, we're 10 days away from the scouting combine happening in Indianapolis. I was doing a little, combine deep dive as to why it all happens, how it all happens, the mechanisms of why it all happens. And I ran across an interesting point that I never really thought about before, but we're 10 days away. Combine's going to be from February 24th through March 3rd with position groups going throughout the days planned. A total of 329 prospects have been invited this year to attend the event. And the things that you don't see are probably more valuable than the things that you do on NFL Network. We all watch the 40 times. We all watch the bench presses, the cone drills, the throwing when the quarterbacks go. And that's all fun. That's great. That's working out in underwear. Everybody enjoys it. But it's the interviews and it's the medicals that really provide value for these teams, getting to know the player probably for the first time, getting to talk to them, and then having your doctors really go over, every conceivable detail that you need. But I did see this in the Boston Sports Journal that I thought was I never really thought of this. The combine has taken place in Indianapolis for 40 years now, and it takes place in the same place. And that is an attribute of the combine. I know the NFL wants to tour it all around and bring the draft everywhere and the Super Bowl everywhere. The combine should never leave Indianapolis. And the point is that it is the ultimate apples to apples comparison for pro talent NFL evaluators. When you factor in the same surface, the same drills conducted in the same indoor conditions at Lucas Oil Stadium year after year after year, not only do you get a baseline of any class that you're evaluating at the combine, but you can measure that baseline against the established baseline of other combine years. Changing the surface, changing the conditions, changing drills or how it might go would screw up the numbers that they're trying to evaluate. So there is a little bit of the hidden beauty of the combine that I never even really thought of before.
Well, just think of it this way. You're just trying to find the truth And it's hard if you have a lot of variables to isolate and to, as you said, have that constant backdrop. So you have a lot of variables. Some guys are older, some guys are younger, some guys are bigger, some guys are faster, some guys are slower, some guys are, and if you want to, isolate all those variables, you want to make sure that you're doing it like it could never be done outside. It has to be done inside.
Right.
Because outside, you're running either with a headwind or a tailwind, or a crosswind. Either way, I mean that impacts things. You want to have the exact same processes and see how the different prospects react in the same environment to different, but different year. So yeah, it's freezing in Indy. There's nothing to do. So at this time of the year, you just go and you sit at the combine and you do your work. I thought it was particularly interesting. I'm going to share the screen here. This is the list from my good friend Ryan Fowler from the NFL Draft Network, or the Draft Network, not NFL Draft Network. But he's an analyst. He does great work. We had him on the other day. Here's a list of the NFL Combine snubs. And usually there's a couple of guys that are noteworthy. This year, gosh, I mean, just give you a few of the names that I love that are not invited to the Combine. Roman Oben, you remember Roman Oben? His son, R.J. Oben, was terrific at Notre Dame this year. He was not Notre Dame edge rusher, not invited to the Combine. It's actually true. I love this Memphis linebacker, Chandler Martin, not invited to the Combine. I mean, that's incredible. This kid Chisholm, the third, who's incredible at the Shrine game from Eastern Washington, looks a lot like Cooper Kupp, not invited to the Shrine game.
I wonder how those decisions are really made.
Are not invited to the Combine. Yeah, I mean, there's only so much time, I think, and there's only so much room. So maybe overall there's greater depth. I don't, I'm not sure. What I will say this: everybody wants to know something different. Like some people, if like let's just say you're R.J. Oben. Maybe somebody wants to know, why you've had some particular injury, and they want the doctor's thing becomes important. But maybe you're, Thomas Perry from Middlebury, and you may have, the big story of the year is that, there's a rumor that you punched one of the assistant coaches in the middle of the season, and now the NFL, community wants to get an answer. So hey, let's ask him about it. Or hey, you know what? Let's put this, a lot of times I've heard they want to put guys in uncomfortable situations. And, they asked Des Bryant if his mom was a prostitute. I mean, that's just, I think it was Ireland from the Dolphins who asked that. And some of those questions just go well beyond what's acceptable. But just looking at this list, Willie Lampkin from North Carolina, absolutely love him. One of my favorite players in the entire draft, not invited to the Combine. The Arizona running back, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, won the MVP of the Shrine game.
Yeah.
Not invited to the Combine. And then this guy down here, this Montana State offensive lineman, Marcus Ware, I thought he was phenomenal at the Combine, or at the Shrine, not invited to the Combine. And then my favorite guy, who I already bought a NIL shirt to support, Nebraska defensive tackle, he wears number 0, Nash Hutmacher. And he was not invited to the Combine. So it just goes to show. And you know what? They ought to just invite more guys. Why? Well, because the scouts all have to get on a bird. Like, I don't know if you saw the New York Giants thing, Damon, in the Hard Knocks, from off-season Hard Knocks. But Shane and Dable and their whole contingent of people in the month of March on this tiny little plane, this tiny little jet that the Giants have, we're going all over the place. It's Columbus, it's Baton Rouge, it's Tuscaloosa. They're going to every single pro day throughout the month of March on this tiny little plane, because they've got to go see all the different prospects. And it's like, hey, if you invited them all to the Combine, and even if you grew the event, that would be an awful lot less flying around the country for every single team. So I'm surprised, Damon, that they haven't, grown the event to add another 100 players, because if you add another 100 players, you probably subtract 25 flights.
And it's data points, it's information. These teams are obsessed with collecting information. And the more guys you get to look at, the more, like, to me, it just doesn't make any sense. The combine is from February 24th through March 3rd. Well, unless there's some mega concert coming into Lucas Oil Field on March 4th, why not extend it another day? I mean, you could get through every single name that on the list you just shared with us in a day's time. So just add one more day. I think that every single NFL team submits a list of, who you'd like to see at the combine. And then they obviously collect all of those names, the names that appear the most frequently. They're all invited. But how you're leaving out, Shrine Bowl, Senior Bowl, MVPs, impressive practices. I just don't know why you would do it. What is the merit to seeing fewer players? How does that help?
Well, I mean, they're producing. I mean, I hate to say it. It sounds crazy. They're really doing two things at once, right? The personnel community's evaluating. The NFL media community's televising an event. I mean, it's a televised event,
right? But
maybe they feel like they can't get through it in a good amount of time. Maybe they want to make it exclusive. I don't know. I mean, it's a great question because it's not like you're going to say, well, this guy wasn't at the combine. Oh, screw it. We won't evaluate him. No, you will evaluate him.
Right.
And if that means you got to get on a plane and fly to Wyoming in the middle of March to evaluate him, guess what? Maybe not the whole contingent, but there's somebody from your organization that's getting on a bird and renting a car and driving out to, Laramie and, sitting there with as he's freezing with his stopwatch, and you're going to work him out. You're going to find out, because you need answers. You need answers to all these questions. So, yeah, I mean, that is something we should. Next time I get an NFL scout on, next time I get somebody from the league on, I'm going to ask that question. Why is the combine so relatively limited when you're going to have, 300 players roughly drafted or nearly drafted, and there's probably 1,000 players in the total pool. Why wouldn't you invite at least 600-700 of them? But maybe they I don't know. Maybe I'm not sure what the process is or what the mindset is. But yeah, they limit it. And to this year, I think this was the year where the most quality prospects that I would be interested in didn't get invited to the combine. So, it's funny how that goes. But
maybe Larry, maybe the lesson is you got no idea what you're looking at.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe the guys that I like aren't worth looking at. It's like and I've got people in my mentions all the time who are like, Krug likes all these obscure guys who are never going to make it. If that's your opinion, hey, you know what? So be it. I don't care. I would say almost every guy that I like makes it, and the guys that I like not only make it, they make it big. So I would dare you to go back and look at my channel, which existed all throughout the last couple of drafts, and I talked about all kinds of guys over the last couple of years. I dare you to find anybody that I talked up that hasn't been good. There you go. There's your charge.
We could find one or two. You're good at what you do. Again, don't worry about the damn.
Go find if you can find it. If you can find one, I'll say, you're right. I talked this guy up, and he's nothing. But it doesn't happen very much.
Don't make me get into Tanner Mordecai right here and now. Anyway,
I love Tanner Mordecai to this minute.
Hey, we still
Tanner Mordecai could play. We're going to find out. I think people are going to see that this summer.
So look, we'll get into what the Niners might do at 11 if they just stay and play at 11. There's a handful of options that we can go over here, and they're not the obscure players in this draft. They're players that you probably are already starting to get yourself familiar with. I do want to talk about the big news, I think, of the last 24 hours, and that looks like the curtain is officially coming down on the Debo era. All signs pointing to Larry. Teams, and this, being around the team as often as you are, and I know this too, just from being in the media for over 20 years, if you are talking to a team staffer and you get a piece of inside information on background off the record, that's not happening just because they like you or there's a coincidence. What they're kind of hoping is that you'll go public with it some way, somehow. Not that you're a useful idiot or anything like that, but they love to float. We'll call them thought bubbles through the media. Then the media then puts in their columns, and then they gauge some reaction. And sometimes this is around players that they're thinking about moving on from. Well, Tim Kawakami just yesterday is given his, lots of people are telling me he's always 20 pounds overweight about Debo, and Debo even responded like, don't believe everything you read or hear. And, I think that Tim was fed that to make it public, to kind of brace 49er fans for the coming Debo separation, if that's indeed what's about to happen. And the overall reaction from the fan base has been kind of stunning to me, because Debo has been a very popular San Francisco 49er, but it feels like the consensus in the fan base is like, yeah, this ride's over. It's time to say goodbye. So it really does feel like Debo is about to be in another uniform. The means to which he gets to that uniform, a trade, an outright release, post-June 1st designation, blah, blah, blah. All of that is still in play, but it really does feel like we've seen the last of him in a Niner uniform, Larry.
There's no doubt. And it's interesting. I kind of thought, just talking about it the last week and seeing the reaction, I thought, the fan base is totally misseeing this. They're not seeing this for what it is. And what I mean by that is that a lot of the people were like, don't trade him in conference. Oh my God, don't trade him in conference. And oh my God, don't trade him to this team. And do not trade him unless you get a 3rd round pick or more. And this and that. And it's like, hey, let's get current here. All right. Currently, the guy sucks. He had 3.2 yards per carry. He had 1 rushing touchdown. He had 4 total touchdowns. He had the same number of touchdowns in like 16 games that Ricky Pearsall had in 11. He had 1 more touchdown on the season than Kyle Juszczyk. Okay, so he doesn't do it as a runner. He had 1 big game against Miami where he was like trying to show Mike McDaniel that he still has it. Other than that, he hasn't been very good. And you can't run him anymore. He's not that dynamic. He's never been a great route runner. So it's like, and then you saw him Super Bowl week. He had a big boiler. I don't need Tim Kawakami to tell me the guy's out of shape. I saw a picture of his boiler at the Super Bowl. I know what a boiler looks like. I know what a boiler means. I can look at the huge gut and say, oh yeah, he's 15 to 20 pounds overweight. The exact amount overweight, the 20 is probably an exaggeration. Let's be honest. That's probably an exaggeration. But the bottom line is this.
Well, look at this.
The Niners owe him.
Debo in great shape, and we've seen him out of shape. We've seen the difference with our own 2 eyes, and we know what they look like. And
I don't mind a guy being out of shape in the off season. You know what I mean? It's like,
right.
It's like, what are we talking about here? But the 49ers owe Debo Samuel a $15.4 million option bonus if he's still on the roster on March the 22nd. So the people that are saying, well, maybe they'll wait till this summer, and no, they're not waiting till this summer. Oh, maybe they'll wait till this. No, they're going to try to get. They don't want to pay that $15.4 million option, so they don't want to pay that bonus money. So I would imagine they're going to try to get him out of there sooner. Now, the other thing is lower your expectations, everybody, myself included, on what's coming back. Because the only way you're going to get anything good back is if you, pair him with another asset. If you just trade him straight up, you're going to get a 5th round pick, and maybe not even, maybe a 6th. But I think my guess is 5th.
Not bad. I wouldn't sneeze at a 5th rounder for Debo.
I wouldn't either. I mean, and the Niners have done well in the 5th round. But what I've suggested is that they pair him with a pick or 2 or another player or some other asset, and see if you can find another receiver, because the bottom line here is the Niners are going to need to add another wide receiver. They're not just going to be able to subtract Debo. It's not as simple as that. Without Debo, their 4 top receivers are Ayuk, coming off a major injury, Jawan Jennings, who still runs 4.7, Ricky Pearsall, who didn't do much this year, Jacob Cowing, who did less. All right. And Ayuk is not going to be there at the start of the year. Ayuk might not even be there till Thanksgiving, and he may be diminished once he shows up. You saw the Niners. They didn't give Cowing hardly any offensive snaps because he's weak. He's 175 pounds. He needs to be like 195 pounds. He needs to get stronger. Jawan Jennings is a dog, and he's always going to be him. But, Pearsall is kind of an unknown. And so guess what? There are not a lot of big-name free agent wide receivers available. The ones that are, they can't afford. They can't afford T. Higgins. I mean, there was Mike Lombardi saying the rumors coming out of Mobile were that the Niners might be a surprise bidder for T. Higgins. Well, that would be a surprise to everybody because the Niners don't have the money for T. Higgins. So I don't know how they would ever make that happen. And so what's left? Then you got guys like Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper had a 15% drop rate last year and was absolutely garbage with Buffalo. People are suggesting Keenan Allen. He's older. Brandon Cooks. He's older. Why those two guys? Because they've got ties to Northern California. Keenan went to Cal. Brandon Cooks grew up a Niner fan in Stockton. I think I did an interview with him years ago, and he told me his dream was to be a Niner, but he's an older receiver at this point.
Hey, look, this is why, the 49ers maybe being interested in Penn State tight end Tyler Warren isn't such a bad idea. Not only not only do you eventually have to replace George Kittle, but when you look at what Warren can do just in terms of ball skills, probably more than a wide receiver that you could add. You need someone who can catch a damn ball, and he can do that. I don't know if the next wide receiver up that you would take before him would be a better version of this dude will catch the football thrown to him than Warren is. I don't care what position he plays.
He's a great player. I mean, he's probably going to go off the board in the top 10 or in the top 15, and right. I don't see the Niners using the 11th pick on him, but he's a great prospect. There's no question. It's a great tight end draft, and they could go with another tight end and then just go more 12 personnel until Ayuk is ready. But I wouldn't even go that route. I mean, you need a receiver. The guy that I would go after is Garrett Wilson because he was an old regime guy. He was the part of the Joe Douglas, Robert Saleh regime with the Jets. That regime's been fired. And so there's always a chance that the new regime doesn't, see the players with the same value. If you could somehow trade Debo and some picks and get a Garrett Wilson, that's the move I'd try to make. Why? Because Garrett Wilson is what they need. They need somebody who can run sub 4.4, but also can run routes, as you just stated. And Garrett Wilson, checks those boxes. The other interesting name to remember in the draft, Matt Barrows had this mentioned earlier that he talked to Dane Brugler, who does the best draft guide there is, and he asked Dane Brugler, are there any Debo-like players this year? And Dane Brugler said TCU's Savion Williams, who's 6'4", 225 pounds. Brugler wrote of Williams, big physical athlete who can roll, explosive dude. His jumps at the combine should be impressive. Okay receiving production, but they had him run a lot of wildcat quarterback, and he lined up in the backfield quite a bit. It really opened up his versatility this year. It's not an apples-to-apples comparison to Debo, but they are similar in their uniqueness as an extension of the run game. But he also has ability downfield. Reminds me of Cordero Patterson. I gave him a 4th-round grade, but wouldn't be surprised if he sneaks into the 3rd round if someone has a clear vision for him. And I'll add if he runs a great 40. I mean, if he goes to Indy in 3 weeks and Savion Williams at 6'4", 225 runs some sub 4.5 40, right, he could be a 3rd-round pick. But that's a guy.
A millionaire.
Yeah, I mean, that could be their Debo. I'll give you one more name. Ricky White III is a running back from UNLV, and he blocked 4 punts this year. There was no FBS team in all of college football that blocked 4 punts as a team, and this guy blocked 4 at UNLV. He's obviously got a knack for it. That alone is such a valuable trait, and he's a pretty interesting receiver. He's probably going to be a mid-round guy, 4th, 5th round. If I could get a 4th or 5th round receiver like a Ricky White, and I could say, okay, well, you're not going to play tons, but you're going to play on special teams. If the guy blocks 2 punts in the course of the year, he's worth his weight in whatever. So Another name to just kind of keep in mind.
Look, when I think of what the Niners need to do this upcoming draft, as much as I agree with you about needing a wide receiver, hey, you needed another wide receiver with Debo. So without him, you definitely need another wide receiver. Trench warfare. Everything that I just watched in that Super Bowl, wide receivers didn't matter a fucking lick in that Super Bowl. This is about trench warfare. That's what this league is about. And I need the 49ers to get bigger up front in both directions. And I don't mean to just like casually say, and then you figure out wide receiver with what you got on your practice squad. But I'm dead serious. Like, you figure it out. Danny Gray, do something, be somebody. Jacob Cowing, this is the opportunity of a lifetime. T.O.'s kid, get your shit together, young man. You're going to have an opportunity to get some snaps.
Danny Gray is no longer there, but yeah.
But you know what I mean? Somebody who is underachieving, doesn't have any status, who, look, if you got the head coach and the quarterback, which you're both insisting, you got now, you're supposed to be able to turn average wide receivers into above average wide receivers if you got a quarterback who's protected and can get the ball out in the right scheme and blah, 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 blah. Great football teams are inside out, not outside in. And I just think that
you're talking to a fan base that had Jerry Rice and John Taylor.
Oh, I know exactly who I'm talking to.
Yeah.
They're
going to sit there and say, hey, the outside matters too. I mean, the bottom line is you got to have good players, period. I mean, the Eagles have A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, and Saquon Barkley as their skill guys. So I can't say that skill guys don't matter. Right? What's that?
But none of those guys really helped win the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl was won because of a defense that dropped the holy shit on the Kansas City Chiefs for 4 quarters and an offensive line that was just the biggest bully on the field.
Well, I kind of disagree. I mean, you're telling me that Saquon Barkley didn't matter? I think he did matter. Just because he didn't have a huge Super Bowl Sunday.
Of course he had of course Saquon Barkley
because you have to defend him and you have to worry about him. And if you're worrying about him, then you're not worrying about other guys. I mean, it all matters. It all matters. But I think your point is well taken. This was a game. Where do the Niners not match up? On the line. They don't match up on the line. And to me, there was the best article that I've seen this week, was actually a podcast that was summarized for 49er Web Zone by my friend Al Sacco, the host of the No Huddle podcast. I don't know if you've had Al on, but he's a great guest too.
I like Al.
Yeah,
was it John Chapman that he does stuff with?
I think it's Brian Rennick, maybe.
Brian Rennick. Yeah, I'm forgetting
Brian Rennick. John Chapman has his 49er Gold Rush.
Yeah. Either way, these are good guys. These are guys who
are
good
guys. Yeah, and Al's an East Coast based guy, but he's the host of the No Huddle podcast. He did a podcast, and I didn't see the podcast. I read the article on 49er Web Zone that kind of talked about it. Then I went back and listened to the podcast, and basically, he had this stat. This is an amazing stat. Since 2020, the 49ers, whose stated goal of this regime was that, man, we want to build a bully on the defensive line. We want to be good up front. We want Bosa. We want D Ford. We've got Buckner. We've got Armstead. We want depth. We want 2 lines. It was like they wanted to have a dominant defensive line, and that's their stated position, right? Since 2020, this team that wants this dominating defensive line has drafted 4 defensive linemen. In the last 5 drafts, the 49ers have drafted 4 defensive linemen. Javon Kinlaw, bust. Drake Jackson, love him, bust. Kalia Davis, bust. Robert Beal Jr., bust. These guys, that quad box there combined for 13 sacks in 10 combined NFL seasons. The Kinlaw miss led to them going after Hargrave. They paid $40 million for Hargrave. He played 22 games and gave him 9 sacks. That was a bust. The Jackson miss led them to trade for Chase Young. He had 3.5 sacks in 12 games, dogged it in the NFC Championship game, and was banished from the kingdom. And then this year, or going into last year, I should say, the Niners didn't even try in the draft. They just we'll do it in free agency. Leonard Floyd, Malik Collins, Jordan Elliott, Yatir Gross-Matos. They added them all. The result was their defense gave up 436 points, the most points allowed by a Niner defense since 2016. And then you look at the Eagles by comparison, and I think you're right to bring them up. They had 6 defensive linemen that they drafted since 2021 that all 6 played a role in Super Bowl Sunday. Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, Jalix Hunt, Moro Ajomo, Nolan Smith, and Milton Williams. All 6 of those guys dominated. They never blitzed once. They used their front 4 with a combination of those 6 guys, and they kicked ass. So it's time for the 49ers to start to invest in defensive linemen at a much, much higher rate. Like, they've drafted 4 defensive linemen in the last 5 drafts. If they don't draft 4 defensive linemen in this draft, I'm going to be disappointed.
Hey, look, it started with Solomon Thomas. Right idea, wrong guy, unfortunately. You're in the right church, wrong pew when it came to Solomon Thomas. Eric Armstead was a hell of a player for the 49ers for a handful of years there. Yeah. Never really appreciated. I think, he was very good. He was very good. He was first team all, very good Niner. And then obviously Nick Bosa was the investment. They've made some they've made really good selections. They made a few bad decisions. They saying goodbye to DeForest Buckner. Decision obviously was a wrong one. You talk about the spinning wheel of defensive tackle. What it started with was that decision to trade him to Indianapolis. But let's just talk about what they got at 11 here, Larry. And so you want to talk about trench warfare at 11? So look, Mason Graham's probably not going to be there. That's how good he is, which means if he is there, you fucking take him, right? I mean, Mason Graham, the D tackle out of Michigan, probably not there. But if he is there, I bet you Robert Saleh is literally grabbing Kyle Shanahan and shaking him in the war room saying, go get me this guy. Beyond that, Mikael Williams, edge rusher from Georgia, I think is, this is a guy who is not versatile. He's not going to slide over to D tackle. He is your bookend on the other side of Nick Bosa.
Don't like him. Don't like him at all.
Don't like him at all. Why?
Don't like him at all. Because he absolutely looks the part. Like, this guy is your defensive end from Central Casting. But so's Robert Beal. And Georgia has some guys.
Robert Beal's a small guy. He's like 6'2", right? he's
No. Robert Beal's like 6'5". He's big. He's 6'4", 6'5". He's a big guy. But my point is Robert Beal is a freaky athlete. Mikael Williams is a freaky athlete. Georgia produces a ton of freaky athletes. But the production's just not there. The production was not there. You can go look at his football card.
Is the production not there because he's got so many other guys cleaning up the mess around him, or he's just, that's the thing. It's tough to evaluate a Georgia football player a little bit.
It is.
It is hard. You can also do pretty well by looking at all the Georgia football players the Eagles have added and just say, yeah, go get one of those.
Yeah. No, I'm not saying I'm not anti-Georgia by any stretch. I love Jalen Walker. There's several guys that I think are really, really good. I just think, and it's not that I don't like this player as far as just period, but as a mid-first round pick, hell to the no.
Okay.
I'm not taking Mikael Williams.
Defensive lineman out of Ole Miss, Walter Nolan. Guy's a run plugger. He's pass pressure. He's versatile. He can play inside, outside. He can be a little bit of a D tackle, edge rusher. He's kind of a jack of all trades along the defensive line. Would you be interested in Walter Nolan if you're making a pick at 11?
Well, he'll definitely be there. I love Walter Nolan. I'm an A&M fan, and he was an A&M recruit. He's from Powell, Tennessee. He went to Powell High School, and it was awesome in high school, okay? 5-star. This guy's a 5-star recruit. And there are not a lot of 5-stars. This guy was a 5-star recruit by all 3 major outlets. So, he was like a universal, awesome badass, and he went to A&M. And freshman year, he played 10 games. He made 4 starts. He was really good. He got the top newcomer of the war award at the banquet at the end of the year. Then sophomore year, he plays in 12 games. Then he transfers to Ole Miss. And he was good for Ole Miss. They were super stacked. Lane Kiffin, he's really, really athletic. He's a pass rusher, but he's 290 pounds, and he also plays the run. So yeah, he's really, really good. He's projected to go like 15 to 25. So if you could trade down a couple spots and get an extra pick, and maybe you do that. But I'll tell you this, kind of the conversation that has to be had by the Niners, and we could have it here too. It's like, is, Jeremy Fowler, Damon, yesterday did a whole NFL power rankings of the offseason, and he had these teams listed in different tiers. He listed the Niners in a tier called stuck in the middle, and he has them in there with the Dallas Cowboys, the Falcons, and the Colts. And I mean, if you're a Niner fan, if you want to slap upside your head in a reality check, that's it right there. Jeremy Fowler, who's a good guy, good reporter, basically says you're stuck in the middle and compares you to Dallas, Atlanta, and Indy. And the only thing those teams have in common is none of them have a prayer of winning the Super Bowl. So that's not a good thing. But then he says, but these teams are a move or two away from, vaulting into a higher status or Super Bowl status. But I think the question is this. Should the Niners stop thinking like that? Should the Niners like there's no doubt there's been a lot of rumors in the last couple of weeks, right? There's rumors about T. Higgins. There's rumors about Max Crosby. There's rumors about Myles Garrett. There's rumors about other guys, Khalil Mack and others. And everybody's talking about that one big name. Oh, if you trade all these assets for Myles Garrett. Oh, you trade all these assets for Max Crosby. We all know Max Crosby's awesome, right? We all know that Myles Garrett's awesome. But I think it's time to have a realistic conversation. Are the 49ers one player away, or what is the best plan of attack? Is the best plan of attack? And the reason I bring this up, this is what you hear the most, and you probably hear this a lot too. Go get Myles Garrett. I would trade the 11th pick in the draft for Myles Garrett. Okay, pie in the sky. This isn't the Santa's workshop. I'm sorry. We live in reality here. The Khalil Mack trade, he was traded for 2 number ones and 4 other draft picks, 6 picks and 2 firsts. So Myles Garrett, now granted, he was on his rookie deal. Myles Garrett's not. Myles Garrett's a little bit older. But Myles Garrett, who's been more dominant than Khalil Mack, is now you're going to get him for the 11th pick overall? I don't think so. I don't think so. So it's going to take a bevy of picks to get either Crosby or him. My question is this. Would you rather trade your bevy? Would you rather use a bevy of picks on your D-line? Or would you rather trade a bevy of picks to the Raiders, to the Browns for that one guy? And that's kind of the philosophical argument that the Niners have to have first. And then after they make that decision, then they can decide what they want to do in the draft. But I think you got to have that decision. And I know lots of the fans are like, trade it all for Max Crosby, trade it all for Myles Garrett. But it's really, Damon, I think more just because they understand that the draft is a crapshoot. And they also understand that they don't know a lot of the players in the draft. So it's a draft pick, or listening to me or anybody just say, oh, this guy looks great. It's like, okay. I need to see it in preseason. I don't believe you, Krug, or whatever. And that's all fine. Be skeptical. But if it was me, I love Myles Garrett. I love Max Crosby. Right. I would be super excited to have them opposite Nick Bosa. But you know what? My evaluation of the roster is that it's not the right year to do that for the Niners.
I agree. So here's a bad segment. 2 hosts who totally agree with each other, but it's the truth. I think they need multiple bites, not just at an apple. They need multiple bites at the entire fruit basket. They have needs everywhere. On every level of the football team, I think they've got needs. So, how about this? Do you like football? Yes. Okay, well, if you like football, you love Myles Garrett, because that's how that works. He is the easiest to spot, sticks out like a sore thumb, badass on a football field. He's awesome. But guess what? Myles Garrett twists his knee and he's not playing today. That line maybe moves a half a point in Las Vegas. Maybe. Probably not. Nick Bosa, he's a hugely important piece of the 49ers. He's out today. That line moves maybe half a point. I love a great.
The Eagles were really good because they had 6 defensive linemen. I just named you 6 defensive linemen. You don't have 6 defensive linemen. Guys,
and what you also need is price points. You need rookie contracts on in the middle and in the back end of this roster because of what Brock is going to make. Brock doesn't mean you're going to say goodbye to your superstars. Brock means you're going to have to go to the draft to find your next group of superstars because free agency is going to be a lot harder to negotiate with this guy's price point. So I think that the 49ers trading a lot of picks for Myles Garrett is a bad idea. I'd rather them trade Nick Bosa for the haul you would get and have 7 more picks. I really would.
Well, how many defensive linemen do the Niners typically have? They have about 10, right? Roughly 10. I mean, it could be 8, 9, but it could be 12. Yeah, I mean, you want, let's say, the goal is to show up in camp with 10 good defensive linemen. Okay, so what do they got? They got Nick Bosa. That's one. They've already designated Hargrave for to be moved off of, unless he takes a lot less, he's gone. And then you've got 4 veterans in Yatir Gross-Matos, Jordan Elliott, Malik Collins, and Leonard Floyd. I would say at least 2 of those 4 probably wind up being cap casualties. Maybe not, but I think so. So you got, let's just say you got Bosa plus 2. So that's 3.
The thumbnail today, right? The thumbnail today is Debo, Greenlaw, and Talanoa Hufanga. Debo's gone. I think we all know that. I hope they can bring Dre Greenlaw back. Talanoa Hufanga lives in a land of maybe. I don't know.
We'll get to that. We'll get to that. But just on the D line, Bosa. Let's just say you have Bosa, Malik Collins, Leonard Floyd, and let's just say those guys are all coming back. So you have 3. Okay. Hargrave, free agent, gone. Givens, a free agent, gone. So you got 3 guys right now.
Jordan
you got
Elliott.
Sam Aquinu, so that's 4. I would think there might be a couple cap casualties between Gross-Matos and Elliott, but let's just say you got one of them there. So now you got 5. You got Evan Anderson, that's 6. Beal, I'm not impressed by. Kalia Davis, I like him as a guy, but he can't stay healthy. Drake Jackson's had major problems knee-wise. It's a make-or-break year for him. So and Alex Barrett and Khalil Davis. Khalil Davis a free agent, by the way. Barrett's just a guy. So you got about 5. You got about 5 defensive linemen that you can depend on for next year. You need 10. So that means you got to come up with 5 defensive linemen that can play. And that's the bad news. The good news is it's an awesome defensive line draft. Awesome. And you're going to be able to find defensive linemen in this draft in every round and after the draft. So that's the good news. But I'm not totally anti Myles Garrett or Max Crosby. I'm just I'm against the idea of trading a bounty of picks. Like if I have 5 picks that I can deal with, I'd rather have 5 picks on the defensive line than trade those 5 picks for 1 defensive lineman. That's all I'm saying.
I would agree. And look, that 1 defensive lineman might give you more production than those 5 players in year 1. But then where are you? I'm trying
to avoid the Warriors-Raptors finals. Do you remember that finals, Warrior fans? I know a lot of Niner fans maybe aren't crossover Warrior fans. Damon and I'm a Giants, Warriors, Niners guy. So I hope maybe some of you are as well. The Warriors got to the finals, and they were the better team with the better roster. But Clay got hurt, KD got hurt, and suddenly they were so star-wrapped up that the Raptors were deeper, better, and won the series.
Well, again, the Raptors had Patrick McCaw. The Warriors had Patrick McCaw. They say goodbye and they just get burned by that move. No, you're right. Look, depth matters. And you got to have a star too. Kawhi Leonard was pretty damn good. We all know that. But when it comes to the Niners, several bites at the draft apple to the point where at 11, if they wanted to trade back, I'd be cool with it. And like you said, the deepest pond in this upcoming draft is the defensive lineman pond. There's a lot of fish in there.
And running back. Those 2, yeah.
Now, because of that, I think, since we're talking trench warfare, where the 49ers need to go with the pick at 11 is probably along the offensive line. And there are 3 names that are there's 2 names that I think you see just about everywhere. Josh Simmons, the offensive tackle from Ohio State, who a lot of people say will be a ready day 1 right tackle, your successor possibly to Trent over at left tackle. There's Kelvin Banks, offensive tackle from Texas, who a lot of people project is probably more suited to start as Aaron Banks's replacement at left guard before he takes over either tackle position. But you need that guy too. There was a new name, and maybe you got to bring this up with Dieter, who, by the way, congratulations to Dieter, new baby at home. Congratulations. By the way, my old producer Albie. And 95.7 The Game, he and his wife just had a beautiful little baby girl too, Maya. So I got pictures of that today. That made me happy. That was my Valentine's Day. Hello, Maya. Welcome to the world. But Dieter's a Mizzou guy, right?
Yes.
Did he go to Mizzou? What does he think of Armand Membo, who I have not seen Armand Membo's name linked to the 11 before, but Ian Cummings did his bio for Pro Football Net. He says, Armand Membo, massive potential at both tackle and guard for the 49ers. He's low to the ground, impossibly long, an elite athlete. He is unyielding with his physicality, and he's trending upwards. Now, I'll just be honest with you. Of all the SEC teams that I watch, Missouri, among the least of them, I didn't even know about Armand Membo until I read this in this draft. And I'm like, oh, new name attached to Niners at 11. What do you think of that? Have you probably already done the draft profile, you sicko?
No, but it's Membu. But yeah, he's
okay.
He was on the Outland watch list. I watched film of him, and I was like, wow, this guy's something. He's got the height of a guard. He's 6'3", 325. But other than that,
low to the ground, impossibly long. I guess that's a nice way of saying he's a little short.
He's special. He's not short. He's just a guard. A lot of these tackles are 6'6", 6'7". So, he could be a plug and play right tackle right away, even though he's 6'3". He's not 5'10". He's 6'3". But I love him. I absolutely love him. He's got long arms. He's got incredible base. The highlight reel is it's so impressive. So impressive. I mean, he can sit in his stance and just anchor against power. So you can't bull rush him. You really can't. And then he's got great long levers. So, he's got, I'm interested to see what he measures at the combine arm length wise, because he looks like he's got 35, 36 inch arms, and he keeps he's got a great stiff punch. He keeps you at the end of that arm. So a lot of people think he's a guard, but I actually think he's got the footwork to be a tackle. I don't think he's a left tackle. He's probably a right tackle, and maybe down the road a right guard or a left guard. But yeah, he's very impressive. He really is. He's definitely one of the guys that I would heavily consider at 11. He's really, really impressive. Now, the guys up top, it's a pretty good tackle draft, really. I think Kelvin Banks is going to be gone in the top 10. I really do. I think he's blue chip. I think Will Campbell, those two guys, LSU and the LSU Campbell and the Texas kid Banks, those guys are going early, like top 10. I don't even think either will be on the board for the Niners, which could push another really special player towards the Niners. Then there's this guy from Minnesota, Ariante Ursi, who's 6'6", 340, and he's just an absolute monster. But the Niners like smaller guys. There's a guy named Wyatt Milam from West Virginia, terrific player. You mentioned Josh Simmons, very much a blue chip offensive tackle. You got to, for Josh Simmons, the combine's going to be about the medical. It's going to be about what does that knee really look like upon close examination. I really love Emory Jones from LSU, who's just almost like a basketball player. He's 6'6", 312 pounds, but he's really long. He could definitely put on 20 pounds at some point. And my favorite guy is Anthony Belton from NC State, who's just a house. He's 6'5", 345. And the one kid that's the sleeper, day 3 guy that you got to check out, he's from the Bay Area, J.C. Davis, who played at Illinois. The size and speed, or the size are just middle of the road. He's 6'5", 307, 310, but he went to McClymonds. And if you watch Illinois this year, they ran the ball. They ran the ball well, and they had a good year. And this guy was Damon. There were a couple games where he just caved in the entire side of his line, and they ran behind him so religiously. It was amazing to watch. So J.C. Davis, kind of, to me, I think that's an incredible prospect, and they list him at 221, which means that he's 6th round, 7th round type player. So just remember that one, J.C. Davis.
How about this? I don't think many people have thought about this or talked about this, but what the Niners need here is, I think they got to sit down with Trent Williams and just say, hey, Trent, we need to know your plans in this upcoming year, and we need to know them before the draft. Like Trent and
it's
his
already
family,
happened. I'm sure it's happened.
Yeah, I mean, he and his wife went through an awful lot last year, and he's already got more money than he'll ever need, and he's at an age where retiring today doesn't sound good, but maybe tomorrow it might. I don't know. His holdout hurt the season. He didn't take a snap after week 11 because of that ankle of his. So is he really feeling like he's ready to go through it all again? They need his concrete decision before this draft. Like,
I think they've already gotten it.
Okay, I hope
think
so.
They've already
it would
gotten
be
it.
devastating to go through this draft thinking you got Trent Williams, drafting like you got Trent Williams, then after the draft, Trent saying, just isn't in me anymore. That would be rough.
Yeah, no, I mean, first of all, it is worth investigating, because when Trent walked out of the locker room this year, I was walking in, and he was like, hey, and he extended his hand. He's like, have a great off season, so we shook hands. And now he's never done that before. And it just kind of made me think,
like you got a goodbye.
Am I never seeing this guy again? Is that his way of saying you're never going to see me again? I don't know. But but when we talked to him earlier in the year, and he was, had gone with the holdout and the new contract, he had an approach like, hey man, I want to be here. I want to play as long as I can play. And I don't think he's going to hang it up. I think he loves to play. I think he's going to continue to play. You're just not. But what you saw this year is the new Trent Williams, as far as he's not going to play in any games that don't matter. So I don't expect him to play at all in the preseason, no matter what. And I don't expect him to play any games if the Niners are mathematically eliminated, like what we saw this year. He could have come back. He would have come back. If the 49ers had been a Super Bowl team, he would have come back. But I'm sure Kyle and Trent had some kind of an agreement. Hey, look, just we're out of it. Just don't bother coming back, because he didn't come back at the end of the year. But I'm telling you, if the circumstances had been different, he would have.
Well, again, and what he and Charvarius Ward had to go through at home is so thoroughly devastating. A player's mindset in a handful of months that they're going through, infant mortality issues.
Yeah.
It's just got to be different than how he feels now. So there's a lot of reasons to give him all the grace and room that he needed last year. This year, it's Trent. No, here's the thing. You don't want to play in the preseason. You're Trent Williams. That's cool. But it's go time. This is it. Here it is. So I hope that they can get that from him. And I hope that he would be honest and upfront. And like you said, that conversation may have already happened. They certainly need it to happen before the draft, because his availability affects what you do in the draft, I think, greatly. Couple of other just around the NFL news items that I'd like to get to, Larry. If there's anything else specifically Niner related, put it on the table. We get to some supers. What do you want to do?
Well, we haven't even addressed Greenlaw or Hufanga, and that's part of the title. So let's go there. I really want to see Greenlaw back. I think he is a culture player. I think means a lot to their culture. I think he means a lot to, you're going to draft a couple young linebackers who can really run. And I want to have Dre Greenlaw there for one more year. Now, I'm okay with saying goodbye to guys if you get priced out. DJ Jones was a great example. I love DJ Jones, and the Niners loved him. He was a great player. But Denver came along and in free agency offered him $30 million. And it was like, DJ, you got to take it. And he took it and he left. Okay, that made sense. But the Niners never should have gotten rid of Jimmy Ward. Jimmy Ward was a key figure on their defense. He got a 1-year, $6 million deal to go to Houston, and he left because of a beef with Shanahan. And, it's like, but you let a guy who's covered like a corner, hit like a linebacker, and you let him out of your building on a 1-year, $6 million deal. And I'm hearing Greenlaw is going to get like similar money, like 1 year, $6 million, 1 year, $8 million, that he's not getting a big money long-term deal anywhere. Now, we'll find out in a few weeks. March 12th, free agency begins. But if Greenlaw is going to get just like a 1-year deal, it's like, I don't care if his body's banged up. You need to pass on what he has as far as this is how we play here. And if he's going to get a 1-year, $6 million deal, Damon, it better be here. I don't want to see him go. If you want to say goodbye to somebody, if somebody offers him $24 million, 3 years, $24 million, Dre, good luck. We love you. But if he gets a 1-year or 2-year deal for $6 million or 2 years for 12, and they don't go in that, and they're like, we pass, man, that's going to piss me off because you're losing a culture player and you're really further away from a Super Bowl.
Well,
it's hard to find guys like this.
You can't lose him to the Rams. Like if the Rams put 1 year,
the Eagles
better put 1 year, $7 million on the table. Okay.
How about the Eagles? I think the Eagles could come knocking. I think the Chiefs could come knocking. There's a lot of talk that Nick Bolton is going to be allowed to walk and that the Chiefs may go with Greenlaw. All I would say is, if you can afford to bring this guy back, bring him back because he means a ton in the room. Not every guy means something. Some guys mean nothing. Some guys just they're there and they don't mean anything in the room. And if they left, nobody would care. If they, they're just guys. You got a team of 53 guys. You got at least 15 guys in the room who are just guys. It doesn't really matter. Then you got 4 or 5 guys that are like, these guys are difference makers. They define the temperature in the room.
Right.
They establish the level of play that you'll play at. And Fred's like that. And Bosa's like that.
Doesn't matter if it says
Greenlaw's
captain.
like that.
Doesn't matter if it says captain on their jersey. They're the leaders.
Dre Greenlaw is one of the most respected guys in the room. I call that corner of the locker room that he's in the respect corner, because you got Purdy, you got Dre, you got Hufanga. They're all right there in that same corner. And it's like, these are some of the most respected guys on the entire team. So, yeah, well, I want to see Greenlaw back, but I didn't. Barrows said that he thinks I think he's a. Let's see, what's Greenlaw? I keep screwing up the Greenlaw thing. Greenlaw is a free agent, so he thinks that they're not going to be able to re-sign him and that he's going to go somewhere else and run his own shop, I think is the word that Matt used. I hope he comes back. Now, Hufanga, even though I love Talanoa, I'm a big Talanoa guy.
When you said it on this, he sits in the respect corner, Larry. So you might be losing 2 players out of the respect corner here.
Yeah, but and Talanoa is the kind of guy you'd want your daughter to marry. He is just solid. He's an absolute solid guy across the board, respected. But the bottom line on him is that you have Malik Mustafa, and Malik Mustafa. Right now, I was looking at some numbers this morning. Well, there was a great thing that a great stat line out this morning that said that Malik Mustafa might be the NFL's most terrifying safety. He was by far the NFL's best coverage safety as a rookie. He played 407 coverage snaps. He was targeted 17 times, least in the NFL. He allowed 7 receptions, least in the NFL. He allowed 49 yards receiving, least in the NFL. He had 1 interception, and he locked up some of the best players: DK Metcalf, Amon-Ra, CeeDee Lamb. Amon-Ra, when it was talking to Debo about Malik Mustafa, was like, number 6 on your team. Oh my God. And that's what Amon-Ra said. Number 6 on your team, Debo. Oh my God. And he's like, yeah, man. Debo's like, yeah, he's real.
Yeah, he hits like Steve Atwater. He is
He's
just
awesome.
a badass. He's
Great. He's a great player.
It's
so
him and Dominic Pooney are the two most important young players on this football team right now, like by miles.
They were the two best rookies for sure. And Mustafa, you have Mustafa and you have Jair Brown. And I know Jair Brown had a disappointing year, but Jair is still a bigger hitter than Talanoa. I think he's a better athlete overall. Talanoa falls off some blocks. He's really good at attacking the mesh point, but he's not a great coverage player down the field. If teams go to the cover 3 and you've got one box safety and one field safety, he can be the box safety. But if you go to a split safety look, and teams are playing more split safety looks, he's got to cover down the field, and he's not a coverage player. So, and he's kind of falls off some blocks and mixing some injuries. And then people will be like, dude, he's Troy Polamalu. And it's like, dude, you're high. No. Troy Polamalu ran 4.33 and had 30 reps of 225 and was like one of the freakiest workout guys the Combine has ever seen. Right. Talanoa Hufanga's got Polamalu's hair, but he doesn't run like Polamalu, doesn't hit like Polamalu, doesn't play like Polamalu.
Right, he's got vowels in his last name, but he
yeah, they're both they're familiar with one another. I mean, I saw something say the Steelers wanted Hufanga. That's fine, but Steeler fans are going to be very disappointed if they think he's Polamalu. He's not Polamalu.
Look at it this way, man. I would love the NFL to grow its salary cap to the point where you don't have to make these tough decisions any longer, because I would love both Dre Greenlaw and Talanoa Hufanga still on this team. Jair Brown and Malik Mustafa, one of those guys is going to miss a game due to an injury, and I'd love to see the next guy out there be Hufanga.
But he's already been an All-Pro.
Yeah, I want him around, man. I want that guy around, even if he's not getting the snaps that he used to get. You want that guy on your football team.
He's a great dude. They love him. But you can't afford to pay everybody. And here's the thing, too. It's about free agency is about your value versus your perceived value. And his perceived value around the league is really, really, really high. And so when you look at his actual value and then you mix in that you have other players there versus the perception of his value, I think it's very likely, Damon, that they just get outbid. Maybe for both Greenlaw and Hufanga, but I think definitely for Hufanga, they're just going to get outbid, and he's probably going to move on. Now, he posted on X yesterday on his page or on his timeline a picture of himself as a little boy wearing a Niner jersey. So, maybe he's dreamt the dream of a lifetime of playing for the 49ers, and he'll give them some ridiculous hometown discount and come back. But anything short of that, I think he's moving on.
It's tough, man. Tough time of year to make these decisions. That's why they make the big bucks. That's why we're on YouTube. Like and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. Larry, do you want to get into some supers?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's see here. We've got a few. Lucian LaChance IV. Why isn't George Seifert in the Hall of Fame? Why isn't Roger Craig or Dwight Clark in the Hall of Fame? Should the Hall of Fame be reformed to prioritize senior candidates? George Seifert's not in the Hall of Fame because I think he went 1-15 with the Carolina Panthers, and right. I think that really hurt him. But yes, George Seifert won 2 Super Bowls. He won the 94 Super Bowl. He won the 89 Super Bowl. And now,
George Seifert is guilty of perception, Larry. Everyone thinks that he was handed and the cheat sheet, and the Niners were so good. He was handed an awesome team by Bill Walsh, and he did awesome things, but everyone expected that. So I don't
didn't Sirianni get handed an awesome team? The Eagles were a Super Bowl team with Howie Roseman in place and lots of talent, and then they brought in Sirianni, and he got. He's not the offensive coordinator, he's not the defensive coordinator, and they have incredible talent. And they probably have the best roster of any roster in football. And he won. And it's like, do we not credit Sirianni? At some point, I think you got to give these coaches credit. As far as Seifert's not in the Hall of Fame, partially because of the perception, as you stated.
Right.
Also,
it's hard to be the guy that follows the man.
Yeah. But he was like, this is the thing, too. real football people know that George Seifert is not just a Niner coach. George Seifert was one of the greatest defensive backfield coaches the league has ever seen. He's right there with Dick LeBeau, Bud Carson, Bill Belichick, Ray Rhodes. I mean, he's as good a defensive coach as there is.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, he's got like a defensive coach reputation the way that Nick Saban had it in the backfield. This is one of the all-time great backfield coaches.
Yeah.
But
as far as the other guys, I mean, Dwight, I love Dwight, but Dwight was not a Hall of Famer. Dwight was a very good football player. Roger Craig was a Hall of Famer, and Roger Craig was, the only. I mean, think about it this way: there's an all-decade team every decade, right? 70s, 80s, 90s. Roger Craig is the only running back on the all-decade team from the 80s, 90s, or 2000s who's not in the Hall of Fame. Put this guy in the Hall of Fame. He was a Pro Bowl running back. He was a Pro Bowl fullback. He was the first 1,000. His workout that Jerry used to run the hills. That's Roger's workout. That was Roger's workout. Jerry got introduced to Roger's workout by Roger.
You don't get to Thurman Thomas without Roger Craig. You don't get to Neil Anderson without Roger Craig. You don't get
CMC.
All your modern. He is an evolutionary step in the history of football. Of your three questions there, Seifert should be, won't be. Dwight Clark shouldn't even be, won't be. Didn't have the career to merit Hall of Fame inclusion, even though he's one of the greatest highlights to ever be highly lit. Roger Craig, it's a crime against the history of football that he is not enshrined in Canton. Telling the story of football without Roger Craig is hard to do. So.
Well, I mean, okay, look at it this way. If you want to cut right to the chase, the greatest 49er team of all time, arguably, but because there's three that are really, really up there, but I would say the greatest 49er team of all time was the 84 Niners. 84. They won 15-1. They got to the Super Bowl against Don Shula and Dan Marino. Roger Craig was the best player on the field in that Super Bowl. Joe got the MVP, but Roger scored 3 touchdowns. And, I mean, you could make an argument that he was the best player on the best Niner team in the biggest game that was played. And, I believe he's the first running back to score 3 touchdowns in a Super Bowl. The guy was amazing. Just an amazing player, amazing blocker, amazing receiver. And, here's the thing, the biggest argument, and I've gotten into this with a couple different people who are trying to promote Roger for the Hall of Fame and interviewed me about it, and we talked about it. And I said,
wasn't that Al Sacco? Wasn't he in the middle of this?
No, it was Mark Craig. I forget exactly the guy's name. I'm sorry, Mark, if I forget your last name.
Mark Adams.
Mark Adams. Thank you, Mark Adams. That's good. Did you just know that, or did somebody come in the chat?
No, so I joined him too on his Roger Craig.
Okay.
I did that too. Like a year ago, we recorded that.
Right. So Mark Adams, Damon, heard me on Niner pregame with Dennis and John Lund, and I said to them, guys, if you would indulge me, let me lay out the argument for why Roger Craig belongs in the Hall of Fame. He happened to be listening that day, and he got inspired to do this huge project. I mean, I was so happy that he did it. I was so touched that he did it. But he's like, I was so moved by your plea for Roger Craig to the Hall of Fame that I decided to get invested in it. And this guy, Damon, did an amazing job. He interviewed Eddie. He interviewed Joe. He interviewed Steve Young. He interviewed all these, Brent Jones, Eddie D, all these guys. And he has worked with Matt Mayoko to try to push Roger for the Hall. And Mayoko has assured me that he thinks Roger will get there, but it's not going to be this year, but he does think it's coming, okay?
Who's standing up in that room making the Roger Craig argument?
It's Mayoko. It's Mayoko.
Okay.
Well, Matt Mayoko. He is the guy making that argument. Okay. But the biggest argument of all is we're in an era now of analytics, all right? there are analytics that football teams, and football's way behind the times in analytics, right? Way behind the times. I think people are going to look back and be like, dude, they used to punt on fourth down. People are going to go for it on fourth down in the future. Trust me. The analytics crowd is just now starting to take hold of NFL football. Well, think about it. How many times have you gone into an NFL locker room for a post-game interview and the running back has 200 yards and the receiver has 200 yards? It's almost never. It's almost by definition impossible. If the running back had a 200-yard day, the receiver is probably not going to have. He's going to have pedestrian. He's going to have 5 catches for 15 yards or whatever. If the receiver has 220 yards, guess what? The running back's going to have 16 carries for 47 yards. Whatever. You hardly ever see running backs who dominate and receivers who dominate. Anybody who covered the Niners knows that Jerry Rice needed the ball. He was fueled by insecurity, and he had to be fed the ball. And Roger Craig was a much more easygoing, I'll go along to get along. Whatever works here, guys. I just want to win. Whatever you do, whatever you need to do. I just want to win games. He was all about the W, and because of it, it's like anything else. It's like a family. You know who needs to be stroked, and you know who doesn't need to be stroked. And the Niners knew Jerry needed to be stroked, and they stroked him. And they knew Roger didn't need to be stroked, and they didn't stroke him. So my point is this: Roger Craig gets people say, oh, well, he wasn't as good. He played with Jerry. Like, playing with Jerry, hurt his numbers. Or helped his numbers. But in reality, playing with Jerry suppressed Rodgers' numbers, suppressed Brent Jones's numbers, suppressed Ricky Waters' numbers, suppressed all the numbers for everybody else. Jerry Rice, you can't have Jerry Rice, who is the greatest statistical entity and force in the history of the National Football League, and not have somebody who got less because Jerry got more.
Right.
And nobody seems to be able to understand that when it comes to Roger Craig. Whatever Roger Craig achieved, he actually achieved more because he took the ball less because Jerry needed the ball.
And by the way, getting that ball to Jerry Rice wasn't a bad idea strategically either.
Not at all.
I mean, that helped you win some football games.
But Roger was, but you know what I'm saying? It's like some guys need it.
How about this? I think that you're thinking about something in a way that a lot of people don't think about it. And you're right. To put so much on one person's plate means something can't be on your plate. And a lot of people, I just think, just make the conclusion, well, this is why John Taylor's numbers aren't where they might have.
Another guy. Yeah, absolutely.
But it really probably is more Roger Craig than even John Taylor. Because remember, we're still in the early days of West Coast offense. And, if a team had one good wide receiver back in the day, that was great. The 49ers were like one of the first teams that really had 2, and then it was what? It was, with John Clayton and Mark Duper down with Miami. And, the first, like, oh, man, you got real complimentary players here now. I think you're right. Look, Roger Craig should be in the Hall of Fame. He should have been in there. He should have been there 5 years ago. He should have been in there 10 years ago.
Roger needs to make it in front of Frank Gore, in my opinion. But
yes, absolutely. Well, that's the thing, too. That's a position that is just so backlogged. It really is.
But Frank's third leading rusher of all time. So Frank's going in. Frank is absolutely going in.
He will get in. But you know what? He's going to have Miyoko stand up and make a big argument, too, and say these are starting a collection of, this isn't just about a guy who remained in the league for such a long time. He was really good, and you got to look, you got to squint. Some people do, to see the Hall of Famer in Frank Gore. I think that's ridiculous. I think that durability is a tremendous attribute for any player to have in this league.
Well, if Jim Harbaugh hadn't screwed it up, if they literally handed the ball to Frank on 1st and goal from the 7 instead of wasting it down on the Michael James and then never handing Frank the ball at all. I mean, how criminal is that? You're Jim Harbaugh
in the NFL.
You're Jim Harbaugh, and you're Bo Schembechler, part 2, and you're a running coach, and the Ravens absolutely could not stop either Kaepernick or Gore on that final drive. And if you watch the Super Bowl broadcast again, you'll hear the announcers at the beginning of that drive going, the Ravens really look tired here, Bob. You know, they really can't stay with Kaepernick. They really can't go with Gore. And the Niners ran the ball down the field and were on first. It was at 2 minutes and like 20 seconds. They were at first and goal from the 7. And it was like, whoa. The question was, would they drive the length? Could they drive the field in that time? And then they get all the way down to the 7-yard line with 2:20 left. And Roger Craig and Kaepernick never ran it again.
Well,
they
not Roger
never
Craig.
ran it
wasn't Roger
again.
Craig. It wasn't Roger Craig.
Frank Gore and Kaepernick never ran it again.
Yeah.
I mean, that, and you throw multiple passes, fades to Crabtree, and oh my God. I mean, they called a run pass option for Kaepernick, and instead of running, he passed, and he ricocheted off of the shoulder pads of Crabtree. I mean, that to me, when I think of the one that got away, I don't think of Mahomes and the Chiefs. I don't think of Shanahan. I think of Harbaugh, first and goal from the 7 in the dome with the old Ravens defense, Bernard Pollard, Ray Lewis, Ed Reed, gasping for air. You and I were sitting next to each other. I'm on the binoculars. I'm like, Damon, they're grabbing their shorts. They're absolutely done. They're absolutely tired. Oh, my God. And what did Jim Harbaugh do? He calls a timeout out of the 2-minute warning because he can't get the goddamn play called. I mean, Jim Harbaugh gagged.
He did.
Gagged right there. And Giro and Harbaugh both gagged Super Bowl 47. No doubt.
That was a bad one. That was a bad one. No doubt about it, man. Oh, it's still the Bruce
Sick.
Miller, clip on the Jacoby Jones
the lack of hold.
he
was sandwiched.
Hey. Happy Valentine's Day, everybody. Let's not do this. Let's not do.
Seriously.
Okay, Ricky Williams, what do you got, Ricky? Chat GPT. Oh, God, our overlord. Chat GPT said the move that the 49ers realistically need to make is Keenan Allen. Suggested Purdy would love to throw to him. Does Skynet know something that we don't? I'm telling you, Keenan Allen is at a price point that makes sense. I think you can have Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen had a 70-catch, 700-yard, 7-touchdown season last year. Had he been a 49er, he would have been one of the best Niners. He did that with a team that was cycling through coaches, on-the-job training a rookie quarterback. Keenan Allen.
He might not be bad.
It's not the worst idea I ever heard. Chat GPT.
No, I like it.
There you
he
go.
Went to Cal. He's a Bay Area guy. I mean, he's from North Carolina, but he went to Cal.
Right.
And yeah, Keenan Allen is Keenan Allen might be one of the best receivers that we never talk about because he's had injuries. He just never is. You talk about the best receivers in football. Nobody ever talks about Keenan Allen, and his numbers are really, really good and multiple stops. So yeah, I like that idea, and I think the price might be very realistically low for Keenan Allen. So that's a good name. I like that one. Joseph Ernberg says BA never going to be the same. Waste of $30 million contract. I love the negativity of Ernberg. He says Trent CMC.
He might not be wrong, which is scary.
He's not wrong. He's just negative. Joseph Ernberg, Trent and CMC going to be old and washed. More wasted money.
I'm not there
Joseph
yet.
Ernberg works for Hallmark, I believe. Joseph Ernberg, we are being in denial on much needed rebuild. I love the negativity. Joseph, you're the best, man. You're the best. Happy Valentine's Day. I definitely agree with this last one. I think that all this talk, the media, the fans, I hope the Niners aren't as delusional as the media and the fans seem to be. The Niners are, I've looked at 5 different power rankings. I looked at the Athletics power rankings. The Niners were 15th. I looked at the ESPN power rankings. The Niners were 13th. I looked at the PFF power rankings. The Niners were mid-pack. The Niners are not, they're not at the top of the league. They're not among the top of the league. Let's not pretend they are. They're a mid-pack team, middle of the pack.
Those are websites that really want you to click on their information. Las Vegas just wants you to go to the betting window, and right now the Niners got the third best odds to be in the Super Bowl out of the NFC next year. So
yeah, but how many teams in the AFC?
Where's all the
yeah, where's
right.
that? Where do they sit with all the teams? I bet you they don't sit. I bet you they sit 10th or something like that.
No, they're like 5th or something. I have this here. Let me find it. I'll find it eventually here.
Well, we know the ones that are in front of them. I mean, Baltimore, Kansas City, Buffalo. Those 3 for sure.
Yep.
Probably Pittsburgh because of the record. I don't know. That might be right. That might, Chargers. Right? Are all these teams got to be in front of the Niners? I mean, Houston, right?
Here it is, Larry. Eagles plus 600, Chiefs plus 650, Ravens 650, Bills 750, Lions 1,000, 49ers plus 1,500, followed by Bengals at 1,800, Packers, Commanders, Rams all over 2,000.
Okay, so they're 6th. They're 6th in the betting. But the betting is always skewed towards them because the betting is Vegas
what I think
out here.
So if it were the 49ers as you know them in the season and the parameters that we just saw, yeah, I'd have a lot of concern too. I'm telling you, I'm putting the Niners down for 10 wins next year. Just guarantee it, because for the first time in multiple years, their special teams will be working for them, not against them. That alone adds 2-3 wins. The 49ers special teams will no longer be helping the other team win the football game. Robert Saleh back in the room, even without a handful of new players to play with, I think makes an average defense an above average defense. I think a last place schedule against this offense, which again, on Wednesday, Larry, we talked about how good they were moving the ball between the 20s. It was just that red zone that screwed up their entire year. If they're a little bit better in the red zone offensively, if they're a little bit better in the red zone defensively against the last place schedule with a special teams that is no longer your premier saboteur of victory, that's 10, 11 wins right there. I really mean it. I
don't know. They can't run in the red zone. They can't run at all in the low red zone.
The Niners right now, go right ahead. I think they're going to have a really good year next year, and how far that really good year goes is dependent on the draft that they're about to have and the free agent choices that they're about to make.
We'll see. Fuji Simeon, Saquon played the role of Walter Payton in the Super Bowl. Both players had the defense keying on them. Neither running back got many yards or even a score, but opened up the offense, allowing other players to score. No, Walter Payton didn't score in the Super Bowl because Dick is a jackass.
That's he wanted the fridge to have a moment.
L. Kurtz says, chug another beer, Larry, for the culture. I did do a thing the other night on the Super Bowl postgame where Kev put a thing in there saying if we get to 50 super chats, Larry will chug a beer. So then we got to 50, I chugged it. And then people were like, chug another one. Kev's like, if we get to 80, we'll chug. We got to 9. It didn't look like we were going to get any.
You keep your bottle of whiskey right next to you. Forget the beers. Start doing shots.
Yeah, well, I'm not drinking whiskey. But I did slam another beer and we got to like 90 supers. And it was hilarious too because people were just like, here's $1, here's another $1, here's another $1, here's another $1. It's like, okay, we got you. You're trying to get the total going. We got this one who's not a super, but it's a good one. Juke Joint 523 Jordan. He says first round Scourton, the defensive end from A&M. Round 2 Azariah Thomas, the corner from Florida State. Round 3 Anthony Belton. Round 3 Savion Williams. Round 4 DJ Farmer, I think from Florida State. Round 4, J.J. Pegues. Round 5, Castro. I think that's the Iowa safety. It's not bad. Not bad. I don't know if Castro's a really a NFL safety. I don't know. He's another guy. I got to see how he works out because he's a productive player, but he doesn't look like a guy who's an NFL coverage guy. Scourton, I don't know about either. Started at Purdue. I don't see greatness there. I see a 280-pound edge rusher, but not an explosive guy. I almost feel like he's best as a 3-4, down lineman, like a 5 technique and a 3-4. The Florida State kid is going to be also about the combine. What does he run? Because he looked great in the All-Star game. Belton is a house. Savion Williams we talked about. Farmer I like a lot. Barry Ford says that Super Bowl versus the Ravens had me pulling my dreadlocks out. Happy Valentine's Day. Yeah, it was bad. It was bad. I'll tell you the most depressing part about that Super Bowl. I mean, because it was an incredible week. I mean, we had such a great week. I mean, I just can't even. That might have been one of the most fun weeks of my entire life. I got to be honest. I love that week. We had such a good time in New Orleans. We just did it big every night. I worked, but my shift was 11 to 2, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. I mean, that is the ideal shift if you're going to be in Super Bowl week because you can party all night. I mean, when you don't have to be at work until 11 o'clock in the morning, you can party till 5 a.m. And we did every night.
You, me, the barista. I think it was Holler maybe with us too. I don't know if Holler was smoking, but we were all smoking something by the river. It was just fucking awesome, man. It was just
we had an amazing night too. We had an incredible dinner at Koshan. We had fried alligator. We had just amazing. That was an amazing week. Yeah. Oh, I was going to say the biggest depressing moment of that whole Super Bowl was the next morning when we saw Frank Gore in the airport in tears.
Do you remember?
Literally in tears. And I'm like thinking to myself, why is this guy in the airport? Wouldn't he fly back with the team? And I don't know what was going on there. I've never asked him about it, but he was in the airport. We saw him in the airport and he had tears in his eyes.
Joe Starkey and God, who was he working with at that time? Was it Eric Davis or was it who was doing color?
Well, no, it was Ted Robinson.
It was Ted Robinson. Well, whoever it was,
it was Ted and
you and I go into the booth to do the post game show.
It was Ted and Tim, right?
Yes, I think it was Ted and Tim, or was it still?
Might have been Ted and Eric. Might have been Ted. No, it might have been Ted and Eric Davis. Might have been Eric Davis. Might have been Eric Davis.
So we go into the booth to do the post game show. We do like 2 segments, and then we're in a commercial break, and my phone rings, and it's Lee Hammer going, "Hey, you guys, would you stop being so negative?" And I was like, "Lee, they just lost the fucking Super Bowl. You want a happy, fun show? What do you want me to do? Come on? What are you serious?"
That's when you just got to be like, "Hey, Lee, shut up."
Yeah, I was like, "Come on, man! You guys are being a little too negative." Yeah, you just got kicked in the dick in the Super Bowl, Lee. What do you want? Come on! Jeez, all right, okay, let's go.
Do you know who we are, Lee? I mean, that's who we are. I've been accused of being negative before. I'm not Joseph Ehrenberg, but I'm negative. Barry Ford says Joseph Ehrenberg is absolutely right. We're in denial about what we need to improve. Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Ehrenberg starting his own channel one of these days. Jordan Steers said 11 D-line.
You know what? I don't need.
Oh, I get you. I see.
Listener supported 7-round mock drafts. Come on.
Here we go. Jordan Steers. He's paying $4.99.
All right, Jordan.
At 11, he wants Walter Nolan. In the second round, he wants the Arizona offensive tackle. In the third round, he wants Birch, the gigantic defensive end from Oregon. Also, he wants David Walker, the defensive end, who looks so good in Mobile. He wants Anthony Belton. He wants Malachi Moore, and he wants Kyle Monange.
I like that. I like that running back pick.
Oh my God, Monange! I love Monange. And that's it. Those are all the supers. That's going to do it for us. I got a jet because I got to make a couple calls before my next stream. I'm going to be streaming with Chase Sr. at 10:45. So we'll call it right here. But good show. What do you got cooking the rest of the day, Damon? And happy Valentine's Day to everybody out there. Hope you guys enjoy the day.
Yeah, thanks. We're gonna be live at 11. We're gonna be talking some Debo. We're gonna be talking a little Warriors. We're gonna be talking about an all-star game that nobody cares about coming to the Bay Area. It's one of the most dead-on-arrival major sporting events to ever, I think, hit the Bay Area. Nike has fixed its Major League Baseball uniform problem. At least that's what they've told us. So we're not going to have to see anybody's balls this year, which I think is, another reason to watch baseball. If I don't have to watch dudes' grundles, I'm in. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. And look, the New York Giants, Larry, are looking to sell a non-controlling stake in the franchise, which is going to reset football's franchise value economics. I think that's kind of interesting. And the Jets parting way with Aaron Rodgers, the only thing I can tell you is that Aaron Rodgers should not be allowed within a 10-mile radius of Santa Clara. Let's not do this. I don't even want to talk about it. No Aaron Rodgers to the San Francisco 49ers. The content creator that suggests that should be marched off the Golden Gate Bridge to never be seen or heard from again. No.
I don't think anybody's actually suggesting that. I don't know where it's coming from, but I haven't heard anybody say go get Aaron Rodgers. But I will say this. The other interesting New York Giant thing is supposedly the Rams have asked the Giants for their top 5 pick if they want Stafford. Will the Giants, who are so desperate, I mean, Joe Shane, Brian Daboll are fired at the end of the year if they don't do something. Or are they going to be so desperate that they trade, a first-round pick? I don't think they would trade the 3rd pick overall, but I think the New York Giants badly want Stafford. I think the Rams are okay with moving Stafford. I would not be surprised if the New York Giants traded back from the top of the first round down into the first round, got more picks, and then traded that first-round pick to the Rams for Stafford. I think the Rams are open-minded to trading Stafford, and I think the New York Giants are desperate for Stafford or desperate for a quarterback that can help them win, especially on the heels of the Saquon Barkley nightmare. So that might be something to look for.
Again,
anyway, that's going to do it.
Who's the Rams starting quarterback next year?
Well, they're saying it would be Aaron Rodgers. Yeah, that would that's why I brought it up, because it would be Stafford moving from the Rams to the Giants, and then the Giants giving the Rams a first-round pick, and then the Rams turning around and signing Aaron Rodgers for 2 years and just playing the next 2 years with Aaron Rodgers. I don't know. It's the kind of move that I could see from McVay and Snead. They've already got their Super Bowl with Stafford, and they're trying to build.
The 49ers, and the one thing that they do regularly is beat Aaron Rodgers. So, yeah, go ahead, be a Rams quarterback. Now they're at 11 wins next year, Larry. I'm loving the Niners next year.
Yeah, I mean, seriously, it might not be the worst thing for the Niners. That's going to do it for us. I hope everybody's got a great Valentine's Day. I told my Valentine, you're a little too healthy for good old Trent Baalke.